Have you ever wished that you could pull small groups, but you're not quite sure what your other students are going to be working on? Maybe you aren't very confident that they can continue working independently. Hey, special educators, it's Jennifer from Positively Learning, and I'm going to be sharing some very real tips that I used in this exact same situation. And yes, you will be able to pull small groups. Hey, special educators, I'm Jennifer from Positively Learning. Welcome to the Special Educators Resource Room. If you're like me, you're always looking for ways to save time and streamline your work. That's why this podcast was created, to give you the systems and solutions you need to get your time back. Tune in for tips, tricks, and tools that will help you manage your workload and make the most of your time. Whether you're brand new or experienced, all are welcome in the Special Educators Resource Room. Welcome to episode 73. Today we're going to be talking about setting your students up for success in working independently so that you can pull your small groups. How are we going to do that? We're going to be talking about independent work systems, how to set them up, what they are used for, and different ways you can use them. I've talked about them before, but I usually just talk about my very favorite system, which is using task boxes. And it is still my favorite, but it's not the only one. In fact, I had more than one system set up so that students had choice. Maybe you have some of these components already in your classroom. Let's kick off with a definition of independent work systems, what they are and what they're not. Independent work systems are not something that you can just pick up in a box off the shelf. Instead, it is a structured framework that you are setting up. It's a system that involves breaking down tasks into manageable steps and then organizing them in a way that allows students to work through them independently. So some key components of an independent work system is having visual supports. So that's pictures, symbols, words, anything to help students understand what tasks they need to complete and what order they're going to be working in. And then you're organizing the task. This is where I start talking about those rainbow task boxes, but there's other ways that you could organize these tasks. In fact, it doesn't matter which system you choose as long as it's accessible and it's something that can remain consistent. An independent work system also has a large variety of tasks. These are much smaller tasks. I think of them as bite size. In one sitting, a student might work through 2, 3, 4 tasks. That's very different than our traditional independent centers. Independent centers I often purchased for a class. I set it up. It was very fun. It lasted for the week and students would rotate through them. With independent work systems, you are setting up many tasks for students to work on. They're bite-sized and they have a lot of variation. These tasks may vary in difficulty and complexity. These tasks can be individualized, align with students' IEP goals and objectives, and be based on students' interests. It's easy to provide all of this variety because they are much quicker, simpler tasks to set up. So think high quality, high quantity. I really think this is a huge part of the magic. When I set up any type of tasks and I share this information with teachers, I always give the suggestion of using these task cards or whatever activity it is as one task, or printing it out once and dividing it into 10 task cards for students to work with in one task box. And you might think that's crazy. They are going to just blow through that in 2 minutes. And I think that's okay. They're going to feel great about themselves. Their attention will be sustained for those 2 minutes. They're going through the steps of starting, working, finishing a task, and that's where those independent skills really get a chance to be practiced. And then they will reach for another task. I'd much rather have a student do 4 bite-sized tasks in a row and feel pretty awesome about themselves than to have one center that they're kind of pushing around those pieces. The last component you want to consider is how you're going to provide positive feedback and reinforcement. Now, you might be thinking, you just said I'd be pulling small groups. Finally, how am I going to do that? Well, you can be providing that positive feedback when you are teaching and introducing the systems. Because the tasks are smaller and students are working through several of them, that provides lots of opportunity for that positive feedback. But it doesn't necessarily have to come verbally from you. It also can be some type of visual reinforcement that you have set up, like a token reinforcement. Students can see, oh, I'm going to be doing this task, this task, this task, and then there's my preferred reinforcer. So that can be set up in place. I fully admit this is a huge contrast to the way I ran centers before I figured out independent work systems. My students would be sitting at a center for a long period of time, possibly not even using the center correctly, but instead maybe playing with the pieces. And then the timer would go off and we clean it up and off we go until maybe the next day when that center is still waiting for them. There wasn't an opportunity to provide that individual feedback to students on what they accomplished. The ultimate goal of the independent work systems is to promote student independence. And it can be done, but you may need to gradually build up to it as students are practicing and learning self-management skills. You are choosing tasks that students will be able to do independently with success. This might be academic, behavioral, life skills, but it won't necessarily be grade level. It is something that students can do independently already so that they can practice that system. It might sound like a lot, but we're not done yet. I'm going to go through some easy ways to set up. And I also want to encourage you to start thinking about what you could be doing while your students are working independently. Are you going to be pulling small groups? Are you going to collect that data you've been meaning to collect for so long now? Or are you just going to sit down and catch your breath? Maybe this sounds like a dream right now, but I promise it can be a reality. So now let's talk about taking some action. You know I love task boxes, and after listening to all the components of an independent work system, it just reinforces why task boxes are so brilliant. Students love them, and they are those individual student size. But there's other things that you could do as well. One of my favorite is using file folder activities. Now, these are not those early days file folders where you're just kind of moving those pieces around again, but instead these can be very small, bite-sized individual student tasks. File folders are great because they are so simple to set up. If you already have access to file folder activities or you are thinking about getting some, I highly encourage you to look at the structure. It's great if you can get majority from the same resource, like the same person who sells them or the same book or the same series. And the reason is the consistency. If you're purchasing from one source, oftentimes they will be set up very similarly. Like the label will be in the same place, the graphics or the title or the font choice, something that makes it really accessible. That was my downfall with centers. I would find the cutest centers everywhere. And my students, it was always like starting something brand new. Yes, that's novelty, but it really took a hit on our independence because my students were always like, what am I supposed to be doing? What is this? Where are the directions? What are the pieces? It was like starting new every single time. We don't want to do that for our independent work systems. So if you have access to file folders, take a look at them. Are the labels in the same place? Are they easy to access? Do they set up very similarly? That's going to save you time and help your students find what they need quickly. I love file folder activities because they are easy to set up, individualize them for students. They're also super easy to store. In fact, I always had a file folder library set up in addition to the task boxes that we used. I also had one more system set up, and this is really good for students of all ages, including our older students. And that is some type of adapted binder. I call them work binders, and they are fantastic to individualize. So think of your students grabbing their own binder, or you could have a series of binders set up and students can choose one. They will open the binder and there's pages. The pages are either laminated or in sheet protectors, and students can go through the activities. Maybe they're using a dry erase marker. Or maybe they're interacting with the activity by moving pieces that are attached with adhesive, like Velcro coins. One big difference in using these work binders is that all of the tasks are within the same binder. Each page is its own task. So instead of switching out boxes or file folders, students would simply grab a binder, select a page to do, Then when they are done with that task, they can select another page to do. It is so great for promoting independence, and it's very easy setup. So I think of it as gathering all the different activities that can go in these work binders and then just customizing the binder. Maybe some students will have the same pages, maybe some students will have different pages depending on their needs and their interests. I call it base pages, the pages that would appear in every work binder, and these could be emotion check-ins or the weather or a calendar or practicing their name. And then the other activities that go in could be individualized, whether it's SEL, life skills, math, early literacy skills, whatever the student needs. If the idea of setting up hundreds of those task boxes don't sound good to you, then work binders might be the perfect solution for your classroom. I found the work binders actually took a little bit more time to set up than the way I set up task boxes. However, it was well worth it because you could reuse these binder pages. You could switch them out to create new binders, and they would last well past one school year. So you could reuse those pages over and over again. Setting up student independent work systems will get you closer to your dream of polling small groups. When choosing the right system for your students, I cannot stress enough the concept of consistency and routine. The resources your students are using should look uniform. They shouldn't be hunting, trying to find the student visual directions or the title of the activity. Don't be me when I started setting up centers for the very first time and I was polling from here, there, and everywhere. If you're looking for a huge library of student tasks that have that clean, simple, uniform look and are very low prep to set up, I invite you to check out the Dollar Clubs. I'll put a link in the show notes. The Dollar Clubs are libraries that are growing that provide tasks, and there's a task box Dollar Club, a file folder Dollar Club, and a work binder Dollar Club. You would simply log in, find the task that is just right for your student, and hit print. It's designed to keep things simple for you, the busy special educator, and promote student independence. If you're listening to this in real time, the link in the show notes will take you to the Taskbox Dollar Club, and there will be an option to add on the file folders and the work binder Dollar Club libraries for a very special savings. This is in honor of the Taskbox Dollar Club turning 2 years old on May 4th. If you're listening to this episode after May 4th, definitely check out the link. There will still be a great savings, but the price will start moving up as these libraries continue to grow. Thank you so much for listening. I am here for you to support you with your teaching goals. Let me know how I can help, and I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.